Yeah, these things have a way of dragging out, that's for sure.
Yeah.
In spite of our best of intentions.
Okay. So shall we call the meeting to order? At 3:03.
Okay.
Is Ed not joining us?
No idea.
I hadn't heard.
I haven't heard back from him.
I haven't either. I mean, I sent it to everybody, but
sometimes he comes in a little late.
Yeah, and his schedule's a little complicated. Okay. Oh, I had the agenda up in front of me, and now, of course, it's disappeared because I'm on Zoom. Let me just go back to that. The first item on the agenda is approval of minutes.
I can do that. They've nicely done.
Joyce, when did you go to Google Docs? It's like 3 extra steps to get into every document. You have to put your everything into it.
Huh. I didn't have issues with that.
No, I had to sign in and they wanted a password, and now I've got, it doesn't want to print. Print, okay. And it also takes extra steps to get into the Zoom meeting. Does it help you to do it that way for some reason, Joyce?
I have a few meetings that I have to coordinate. So yes, if I have a place for everything, it makes my life easier.
Yep.
Okay, but you can't do it otherwise and then just stick it into Google Docs. We have to go through Google Docs.
I can send them. I can email them to you. Would you prefer I just email them to you?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, I can do that.
Yeah, because then we can just go to email and open them, and there they are. Okay, I'm closing this now. All right, so do we have a motion to accept the minutes as provided?
Yes.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Everything is old business. Most of this we've begun or gone through once or twice, and we just need to try to resolve some of these things. The first thing I put on the agenda is a discussion and a motion to urge full or partial reopening of Swift House. I know that Nancy Schaefer met with Jean before the annual meeting of the Garden Club and talked to her about what the delay was and what needed to be done. Jean was supposed to be coming to the annual meeting of the Garden Club, but she wasn't able to make it. So we didn't have an opportunity to try to work anything out there. But Nancy said that, the Garden Club tries to raise money to provide services to the town, including buying and replacing new park benches, all the things they do, keeping the signs in good shape and the monument plantings and the plantings at Town Hall and Swift House. And I think it's sort of incredible that we would ask them, or the town would ask them, to pay a cost to use the facilities that they've been granted over many years. When Nancy spoke to Jean about it, she said, well, isn't there some way that Swift House could be indemnified under the same kind of insurance that the town has for Town Hall? And according to Nancy, Jean said, well, that's an idea. Well, I thought we'd already offered that idea, and it was going to be researched and see if that wasn't possible. But this, the reopening of the Town Hall, especially for the chamber offices and the Garden Club, and for the event that your friends would like to have there in June, March, we've been talking about this for months now, since January or February. And so I'd like it if we could decide upon a motion and make a motion requesting that the Board of Selectmen resolve any outstanding issues and approve the reopening of Swift House without further delay by the end of May, if not sooner, for the Chamber of Commerce to resume use and payment of rent for the office and storage space by non-handicapped employees upon presentation of liability certificate if necessary, and with the understanding that no public events will be held there until ADA requirements are met. And in the interim, any meetings with handicapped individuals will be scheduled and take place elsewhere. And for the Kent Garden Club, Garden Club members, none of whom are handicapped, to resume use of Swift House space as in the past in exchange for volunteer service to the town, including maintaining the Swift House gardens at no cost to the Garden Club, with the understanding that no public events will be hosted by them at Swift House until approved by the Board of Selectmen. And for individuals wishing to rent the facilities for private events, upon payment of rental fee and certification that there will be no handicapped guests attending. Alternative space may be offered for rental instead at Kent Community House or Kent Town Hall if handicapped facilities are required. I've been told by a handicapped coordinator, whatever that title is, that if they make a space available for rent and it's not handicap accessible, then it's okay, as long as they have other facilities that they could offer. You know, the people renting don't have to choose the other facilities, but that takes care of the requirement of being, you know, open to handicap use. How do you all feel about that? I mean, I feel tired of this discussion. It goes on and on at every Board of Selectmen's meeting at which Swift House is on the agenda, which seems to be all of them. And I think unless we really sort of press the issue and ask for a deadline, that nothing ever gets resolved and decided.
Right. The Jennings keep asking me and I keep telling them the same thing. So I think trying to put.
Well, the Garden Club and the Chamber of Commerce keep asking me what the status is. And I can't tell them. It's just endless.
Glenn, what do you think?
Well, I'm reading the notes on the Board of Selectmen meeting from April 21st. So is it 21st? 21st. That was the last time we talked about the Swift House. We've met since, and that was about other issues. But at that meeting, you know, Jean talked about Attorney Randy DeBella and talked about ADA requirements, and I don't think it was still resolved. I see the bottom bullet point there: get clarification from Randy DeBella is "quote unquote" new use defined as a new rental group. So I remember that meeting.
Yeah.
After this meeting, I'll go and look at the Zoom again. But looking at the notes, you know, it just seemed that Jean wanted to have town attorney talk about this, and I have not seen a new email about this since.
Well, the town attorney, with all due respect, is not an ADA authority. And I think that Lynn Worthington said at that same meeting in the public comment section that her own husband is a building inspector and a trained ADA coordinator, or whatever the title is. And instead of paying the town attorney for an opinion, why doesn't the Board of Selectmen go to someone who's authorized by the state to opine on the requirements and how they need to be met?
I reached out to John and had a conversation a little bit about this, and you know, so I you know, we can make a resolution, but I have a feeling it's going to go how it's gone before. At the Board of Selectmen. So I think at the Board of Selectmen meeting, we need to figure out who in this town or outside of this town is able to give us the ADA knowledge that we need. And then we need to find out exactly how much that will cost and then move forward.
Okay, can that not be in the works before waiting for a meeting once a month? Or, I mean, is it possible to, speak to, I mean, you can caucus with Jean, you're of the same party, you can have a conversation with her and tell her that these organizations are constantly asking for, some resolution.
I think
none of them have handicapped individuals that are involved.
No, I think she's aware of that. We've been in meetings where we've mentioned that, but I think this ADA issue is the issue that is going to come up again. So somehow, some way, we need to find out what's needed and how much, and can we do it with the funds that are available to us.
But Glenn, I'm talking about between now and when it's done, because I've also spoken to John Worthington, and he has said that the determination is by use, not by ownership. So since the use is not-for-profit organizations, individuals, Chamber of Commerce, and it isn't in municipal use, it isn't a place where the business of the town is transacted, where the public has to have access for any reason. The Chamber of Commerce does not have to have membership meetings there. They just want to be able to use their office and get to their storage and clean it up and put it to use. And quite frankly, we could use the $1,200 a year that they're supposed to be paying in rent and have not apparently been billed for the past year, even though they have the only keys to the space and it's filled with their storage. So it would be nice to have that to put toward repairs.
May I interrupt for a second, please? Because we've been over this. I'm not trying to stop you, Zan, but we've been over this, but I'm very interested in the motion that you just drafted. And I'm interested in what Glenn might think about the fact that in that, it says something about if these people, the Jenningses, that's incorrect, plural, can say that they don't have any individuals at the reunion that need ADA access, then could they use the building?
Right.
That's what I'm asking about. Would that particular clause in the motion that you have drafted, which makes a lot of sense, get us in there before we are able to really get this ADA issue settled?
Yeah, because if there are, in each of these three cases, there are no handicapped individuals.
Correct.
That are at issue here. And they're not proposing events that are open to the public where you have no idea who's going to show up.
Correct.
So in these cases for limited, use, can we not just move forward?
Glenn, do you think that that clause in Zan's proposed motion would make a difference?
Read the motion again one more time.
Or at least that part of it. It's a long motion, but the part
long motion.
It's a long motion. It's three parts: the chamber, the garden club, and individuals who wish to rent. But request that the Board of Selectmen resolve any outstanding issues and approve reopening of Swift House without further delay. It could be, say, on a limited basis without further delay by the end of May, if not sooner, to Chamber of Commerce, Kent Garden Club members, individuals. And the individual says individuals wishing to rent the facilities for private events upon payment of rental fee and certification that there will be no handicapped guests attending.
That's the key.
Right.
You can't say that.
You can't.
You can't put that in a motion.
Joyce, you're saying you cannot say that?
Why not?
That's discriminatory. You cannot put that sort of clause in a motion.
Well, no, I think that the point is that if there are people in these groups that are, if there's nobody that's handicapped that's coming to these events or these gatherings, that could be so stated in the application to rent it. It's not saying they would be excluding anybody.
Right. It goes on, Joyce, to say that alternative space may be offered for rental instead at the community house or Kent Town Hall if handicap facilities are required. So that's not discriminatory.
It is, because so if the Jennings family, we'll just use them as an example, is having an event there, but there's somebody who has disabilities we're going to move the whole party, or we're just going to move that one individual.
But the Jennings have said there is nobody in their family that's disabled.
So family X wants to come in and host a party there. They don't realize that one of their family members now has a disability, but yet they have the facility set up for their event, and then a disabled person shows up. What do they do?
Well, what I have been told by handicapped authority is, if the town, I mean, it's perfectly fine to say the facility is not handicap accessible at this point. We do have other facilities that are. So if you need handicap access, we could offer you the community house or a space at town hall for your meeting or event or whatever it is. If you have alternative space, that takes care of the discriminatory issue.
But I think because we're renting it as a municipality, it's assumed that we would be ADA compliant. So in my example, if there's a family who rents it and then all of a sudden a family member or an invited guest comes and they don't realize that that person has needs that we can't meet in that building at the 11th hour, you know, when this party's already started, what are we going to do with these people? Like, as a municipality, I would think I'd be renting a building that would accommodate somebody who requires.
I mean, this is a family that's rented for years and years.
And I understand that we have in this particular family, and they would make do, but I think
setting a precedent,
stumbling block.
But you can say when somebody inquires about a rental, do you require handicap facilities?
I'm not saying that. There's no way I'm asking somebody that.
It's a perfectly acceptable procedure according to ADA compliance people, if you have other facilities that you can offer them instead.
But when we say it's perfectly fine with ADA people, we currently do not have an ADA person working for this town.
So that actually is the key then.
Yeah,
that is a huge key.
Yeah,
we do not have one. Like we're talking to people, we're talking, but we need someone who knows all of these laws, will be a part of this process somehow. I don't know how exactly, but until then, the ADA issue is holding us up for the short term.
So if we forgot about the specific case of the family reunion, which I think is a shame for the family, and we were just talking about the Chamber of Commerce that has a rental agreement with the town that is not being fulfilled or billed, and the Garden Club that has had an ongoing arrangement with the town for many years and has no handicap members and would not be having public events there. I just don't understand why it's a problem in those two cases.
Well, I think we can, and I will be there at the Board of Selectmen meeting. I mean, I think we can put it again on the agenda. We can ask what is happening with this in the short term. I can ask this. I can ask this on behalf of this subcommittee. And we need to somehow, in the short term, resolve this ADA issue. It just has to be resolved one way or the other.
Yes.
I appreciate that you can ask this question again, Glenn, but you've been asking it, and the rest of us have been asking it for quite a few months. I'm trying to see if there's a way that we can speed up the process and get resolution. And I thought perhaps if we had a formal motion of the members of this task force, that would at least help let the Board of Selectmen know that there's some urgency on the part of these organizations. They don't know what's happening. They keep asking.
Well, then maybe come up with a very short motion saying that, instead of getting into all the details about possibly having other places to rent. I mean, I appreciate the hard work you put into that motion, Zan, but I see what Glenn's saying. Maybe the motions should just push the town to find a qualified person to work on this, because DeBella just doesn't seem to be enough.
Well, DeBella is not qualified either.
Right, that's what I'm saying. If we could just make the motion and really urging the town to find a qualified person to settle this issue, we would all be happy to get rid of it.
Yeah.
I'd be in favor of that.
Okay. I think it's helpful to state that the Chamber, how the Chamber of Commerce intends to use it and how the Kent Garden Club intends to use it, and that they will not be hosting public events there. So
yeah, I think that's fair enough. And then just urge the town to find somebody to settle this issue once and for all.
Okay. Okay, so a motion to request that the Board of Selectmen identify and hire what?
A qualified person. I don't know what else to say. I don't know what the official wording
Qualified
should-
ADA compliance officer.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good.
I can check with John and see what the actual title is.
That's a good idea.
Compliance officer to advise on ADA, to advise the Board of Selectmen. And the other issue is the insurance issue. So it's, there are two outstanding issues that have not been resolved. The ADA issue and the liability insurance issue. Okay.
And then I think just to add that, again, we're thinking of current use for this building. I mean,
Right.
current, possible, near future. And this committee, we are talking about future, what ultimately happens with this building. And I think what we're talking about is part of that. And when we talk about the report that goes to the Board of Selectmen, I do have a few things to say about.
That's definitely on the agenda, but can we finish with this now?
Sure.
The other issue is, Joyce, do you have any knowledge of whether Jean has made any inquiries about how the town might provide the kind of, I think I heard somewhere along the line that for volunteers who work on behalf of the town, that, whether it's a board or a commission or a part-time employee or a full-time employee, that the town's insurance covers them, but it would not cover people who are renting the space individually unless the insurance were expanded to cover Swift House in the same way that it covers people that come and go from town hall.
And yeah.
I mean, when Nancy Schaefer was talking about this after her conversation with Jean, when she raised this, Jean seemed interested and, well, maybe we could do that. But do you know if anything has been done about inquiring? Because, to make the garden club go out and buy insurance for every meeting they have, every time they're doing work in town is, I think it would be astounding.
Not to my knowledge.
Are you the point person for the insurance, or is she?
I don't know what you're asking. I'm sorry.
I mean, which one of you would be the one to inquire so that issue might get resolved too?
Well, what do you, I believe that Randy DeBella answered the question about insurance. So what is it that you're trying to get the garden club to be a town entity? Is that what you're?
No, well, the garden club does volunteer work on behalf of the town. They're not appointed by the town. It's not a town, they're not town employees.
Right.
But I don't quite understand if the issue is liability if somebody trips and falls in the building, or liability, if you're having a party there, yes, you're serving alcohol, it's a busy thing. You can't monitor everybody. It's really important to have liability insurance at a party, but do you have to have liability insurance if you are working as a volunteer on behalf of the town?
Yeah. Jean would have to get additional information on that.
And what kind of insurance does the town have to cover people that come and go from town hall? And could that be expanded to include Swift House at reasonable cost? So that people who, people that were not private individuals, but I'm assuming that the chamber has liability insurance because they sponsor all the events, and I would think they'd have to have it. If, I would think, I haven't ever talked to them about that, but you could make that inquiry. So there are these two issues that need to be resolved so that we can move forward. So the beginning of this said, request that the Board of Selectmen resolve any outstanding issues, including and approve reopening of Swift House without further delay by identifying and hiring an ADA compliance officer to advise on a resolution to the ADA issues, and find a suitable solution to the liability insurance issue. I don't know. Should we just say that? Shall I redraft this and circulate it?
Yeah, probably. I'm getting confused at this point, but yes, I think, or just, what did you just say? I'm sorry, I had to take a text message that came in.
Okay. A motion to request that the Board of Selectmen resolve any outstanding issues by identifying and hiring an ADA compliance officer to advise on a resolution of ADA issues. And I don't know how to propose that the insurance issue. I just was going to leave it to the board to resolve the issues.
Yeah.
But
I think that sounds good, Zan. You're just asking them to come to a resolution, come to a solution.
And also include the information about how the Chamber of Commerce and the Garden Club intend to use the space on, that it would be not be for public meetings.
Right, it's not a change of use.
No.
This resolution, it would be, I don't know, for me anyway, would be cleaner if we said something to the effect of, we would like the Board of Selectmen to resolve any and all issues around ADA compliance, so that
and liability insurance.
And insurance too?
Well, that's the other thing. That's the other issue that's been raised. And the Garden Club is not in a position to spend a lot of money buying insurance so that they can help the town. I mean, if they were to use the tulip option, they'd have to buy insurance every time they use the building. And what they're doing is all service to the town.
Yeah. Well, if Jean was interested in exploring that, I'm sorry, I did have to leave just for a couple of minutes, but if Jean is interested in exploring the option, I think that should be the suggestion.
And explore options for
town coverage.
Town coverage of the building.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But there are two separate issues. There's the ADA and then the insurance. They're quite different, actually.
Right.
I would like.
Well, then maybe we should have
to resolve the outstanding issues, plural. There are two issues.
Or should we have two separate motions? Glenn, what do you think would be cleaner?
Definitely a motion simply about ADA.
Yeah. I agree.
Let's start with that one, actually.
But then we'll turn around and they won't be able to move in because of the insurance issue. I mean, both issues have to be
But
resolved.
can we maybe put them in 2 separate motions?
We can put them in 2 separate motions or in a 2-part motion, one for each issue.
So I'm gonna
Matter to me.
I think if Glenn has said it'd be cleaner to have a motion simply on ADA, that because that is the big sticky wicket.
It isn't really.
Well, but it's the one in terms of finding the right person to do that, I think is something that's more complicated. And then if we could do a separate motion asking them to come to a decision about the insurance, just to keep it separate.
Okay. 2 motions then?
I think so.
Okay. I'll draft it as 2 motions. And shall we preface it by saying we are talking about limited use for these 2 organizations? And I don't know what we're going to do about the rental event.
Yeah.
Which is a shame.
Well, I think Joyce does.
Maybe the ADA compliance person can advise on that, because what I was told by an ADA compliance person is that if you have other facilities available that are ADA compliant, you can have some that are not. You know, it's like rental housing. Not every housing unit is ADA compliant. If you have some, you know, they might be full, but you have some. Okay. All right. I didn't think this would take that long, but moving right along. Okay. Okay. We brought this up at the last meeting and nobody really had time to read and think about the last report. The last report, we had a very specific charge for the first Swift House task force, which was to assess and prioritize current, midterm, and long-term physical needs of the building, to have supervisory responsibility over budgeted funding to undertake critically needed repairs, to study options for future use of Swift House and its surrounding area, and to formulate recommendations for a Swift House action plan to present to the Board of Selectmen. I think our report addressed those issues. We don't have a charge that says we want you to do A, B, C, D anymore. We just have a charge that says produce a report. So we need to decide among us what all should be included in the report. I'm, you know, no pride of authorship on the last one. If you've looked at it, there are things that could be abbreviated. There are things that, you know, were specifically answering the charge that we were given. I don't have a clear idea of what's expected in this report and how much information, detailed information. I know that Glenn felt that we should get more accurate numbers on what it would take to do the kind of upgrades that we were talking about, you know, an improved kitchen, maybe a more open plan to make the space more flexible. Certainly ADA compliance was on the last recommendation and is a hot topic now. But can you guys give some feedback on what you thought about the last report and how you think we should be? I mean, are we going to make a recommendation as a committee, which we were asked to do the last time and did, or are we just going to throw options out there and compare and contrast or comment on each option? Or what do you think?
So. I mean, I think so. And first of all, Marge, thanks for emailing us. You gave us that
survey,
update survey and all that. And yeah, in this report, you know, I mean, the first couple of pages are great. Explains the history of the building. I think page number 4 that definitely needs to be edited because a lot of that was done.
Right.
So that a lot of that will need to be just deleted or updated, explained, and then looking at page, was it 7? Another one, because that chimney was completed.
Right.
The roof. So I think we've talked about that, and I think it's really the last page I just want to talk about briefly, because task force recommendations C, Swift House improvements and costs, and it's got a lot in there. It's got 120,000 total in there, and I'd like to definitely tweak this this page in particular. So if we, as part of this report, if we say that one of the options for this house is maintaining what has been done in the recent past, basically everything we've just talked about in this meeting, I think ADA.
I mean, in terms of use, Glenn?
In terms of use, yeah. So if we keep it the same use, this is how much, this is what we can do in there, and this is how much it costs. And we separate that out from if the use changes, if this is what we want to do with this, i.e. use the second floor, all of these improvements need to be made, and this is the funding that's required of that. So if we just separate that out, and if we have more than 2 ideas about what we do with this building, then we have a third or fourth. But all of this together is it's all of it together, and if let's say the town says we don't want to do anything more than what has been done with it, then this is X amount of funds, this is what's needed, and then if it's something else the town would want, then this is the funding necessary. How do we intend to do it? So I think that's what I'd like to see.
Okay, so I'm a little bit confused. So you're talking about getting financial information about, I mean, do we all agree, because we're a new, differently composed task force now than we were when we did the first report? Do you think that the plan that was presented makes sense, or that we should be looking at other options for improvements? Because the way things are, there haven't been any upgrades in a very long time internally, the interior upgrades. And there are improvements that could be made, and there's some basic equipment that would make it much more usable, like some, a projection, a screen, some way to do a small illustrated talk, better seating for a small group, some furniture upgrades, and probably moving the kitchen to a more usable space and opening that up. I've talked to a couple people about, contractors, about helping us with getting prices, both for the ADA bathroom and for some of these upgrades that we've talked about. And I don't want people to have to spin their wheels and spend a lot of time and effort researching something that we're not going to propose. So did you all have a chance to look at that plan? Do you think that's a good one? Do you think
what are you calling a plan, Zan? I'm sorry.
The plan, Marge, that our last task force looked at and approved and based the estimates on page 7 on where the kitchen would be moved from where it is now to the pantry space. What's now the kitchen would become probably the storage for folding chairs or stacking chairs. We do the ADA compliant bathroom. We would relocate the chamber and open up that space, and at the same time make the stairway to the second floor code compliant as part of that opening.
Stan?
Yeah.
I believe that when Stan and Joe were there, they told you if you opened up that room, you potentially would put yourself in a position where you'd have to have 2 restrooms. Is that not correct?
No, you would only have to have 2 restrooms depending upon what you state as your capacity.
Right, but if you're opening it up with the intent that you would be able to utilize the space for that many people, and the number of people would dictate the number of restrooms you need, is what I heard.
That sounds familiar. I'm looking for my notes from that meeting.
Well, I think that I guess if it's, I mean, it could be used separately or together. You know, you could have an event there where you have a seated talk and then you have a reception in the next room, but you don't have any more people. They just move from one space to another.
Do we want to continue to try to figure this out before we get feedback from the public?
I think we need to get feedback from the public, but we are on a pretty short time frame because, you know, our charge that Glenn put before the selectmen that we're working toward is that we are supposed to be getting a report done by early fall. So I think that the survey needs to go out quickly, and then we need to see what kind of results there are there. But I think I've always felt, and you could persuade me otherwise, but I think before anybody, the town were to vote on what's to become of Swift House, that you need to be able to illustrate the options. And if you have an idea of what improvements might be made, then I think, an architectural rendering that says this is what it would look like, and this is these are the amenities that we would be providing, and it would cost X. So, in terms of planning, we're jumping around on the agenda, but I think we need to do research and information. And if you all feel that we should follow the same sort of format as the last report, maybe abbreviating the history. I like your history lead in March that you wrote for the survey. Maybe there's a little too much about the building, but I think it's helpful to know the history of the town acquiring it and what it was intended to be used for. Is there anything in the old report that you think we should eliminate? Do you think we should make a recommendation? I mean, we're not ready to make a recommendation because we haven't gotten much information back from the survey.
Well, that's a good point. If we can provide them with a report, but that doesn't mean that there has to be recommendations in the report, or at least not extensive recommendations.
Yeah, we were asked to make recommendations the last time, and so we did so. And we were all of a mind,
right,
in what we were recommending.
So what is the request? Have they given us any guidelines for the report that they want by the fall?
No, they're not.
All right, well, my suggestion would be then to just try to get the survey polished up and out and see what the townspeople think, because we may just be getting in way over our heads if everybody either wants to sell the house or they have little, I don't know. I have no idea how the public is going to respond to this. And that's why we tried to craft the survey in such a way that we can get a better handle on it.
I sort of feel, I think that's a good first step, but I don't necessarily think that as a task force, we should just fall in line with whatever the results of the survey.
No, of course not. But we
need to have a public information session where we provide information and options. Maybe through the survey, we can eliminate a few options. I mean, I heard another option from somebody in real estate recently that you know, it could be a saleable building as an investment for somebody to put a retail space or an office space or commercial space of some kind in part of the ground floor and have 2 housing rental units in the building. And, you know, as a private investment opportunity, which sounds like a pretty reasonable option too. So, you know, there are plenty of possibilities, and until you put them out there, and especially, you know, I think that the whole concept of running out of space at town hall, but letting this go when it's really has considerable space that would be available to the town without building new structures is something that should be considered too. You know, we didn't even think about that when we did the last report because that wasn't in the air. So do we proceed along the idea that the report will be similar to the last one, but maybe enumerate the options and for more of a discussion?
Yeah, I guess we could do that. I mean, just obviously, as Glenn said, take out everything that we've already taken care of, or at least put them into a different paragraph saying that this is what we've done.
Well, yeah, that's
obvious. And then instead of coming up with a list of recommendations with prices, at least just have a list of options for which the house could be used.
But people make decisions, and especially, you know, the Board of Finance, the selectmen, the public, they make decisions partly on what are the financial repercussions to the town. So I think we need to do some of that homework, whether it's, you know, we're not going to have any idea what it would cost to put an addition on town hall in 10 years, but I'm sure out there in the construction industry, there's a cost per square foot for a brick building with, you know, offices in it and plumbing facilities, and that we could use as a reference guide. And, you know, if we had some idea of how large that would be, and could project 10-year escalation, then we could say that, you know, we have this building, it would cost X to make it into a municipal structure with municipal requirements, as opposed to how much it would cost to build a new wing on town hall. I don't know.
I mean, is it our job to go try to find out how much it would cost to build a wing on the town hall?
Well, I mean, you would just use industry.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah. You know, cost per square foot figures.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We're not going to design the new wing.
Yeah, I think whatever report we do, like I said earlier, we need to have hard data, hard numbers, because you're right, funding is going to drive this, and keep it to the Swift House. And you know, and having gone through my first budget season here this year, I kind of know how that goes a little bit more now.
Good.
And you know, and any decisions about this building are going to require decisions about funding.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's hard numbers are hard, especially hard now, because everything is so in flux. Yep. But we could get pretty accurate estimates. I asked Dan Schiesel if he would want to work as an advisor to us on this, and he is very hard in the throes of completing a project that won't be done until probably midsummer, and then he's hoping to have a long-awaited vacation. I talked to John Johnson, and I'm meeting with him next week, and you know, he's a really sweet guy, and has been very helpful to the town and very civic minded. And I think he might be helpful to us too. But, you know, anybody who is working right now in the construction industry is so out straight that they aren't even returning phone calls. And John is retired for the most part, but at least he has a good relationship with lots of contractors and could probably get them to respond to him and help us with numbers if you think we need fairly hard numbers.
Well, and just to mention, I only have about 10 minutes here. I have another subcommittee.
Yeah, I do too. I don't know what to do.
But yeah, I mean, if nothing changes in terms of use with this house, we need to talk about ADA and find out how much that would cost. And if we present something that is much more grandiose, but by using the second floor, listening to Stan and Joe when we were in there,
we're not proposing the second floor at this point.
Okay.
I mean, the second floor, if somebody wants to buy the building and work on housing, that's up to them. I don't think it's something that the town is going to do in the foreseeable future. I mean, okay, at some point in the distant future, maybe, but I don't think that's not a recommendation from us.
Okay, so so something like that will not be in this report then.
Good.
No, I think we don't consider that now.
Okay.
I mean, we either consider current use and improving the building for current use, maintaining it for use by the town for future expansion, selling it. Those are the options, really.
And then as far as the recommendations for costs and stuff, the page that we had in the report from last time, can that be still used?
Well, Glenn is uncomfortable with it. He doesn't think they're hard enough numbers.
Oh, okay, that's right. That was going to be my question. So that's what has to be fine-tuned.
Well, again, like going right down the list, I mean, there's freshly painted interior walls, 25,000. The ADA compliant front entrance, 12,000.
Right.
Well, let's not do this in detail now because you've got limited time, and I really want to get to the survey because I think that's important.
Okay, but that's what I was talking about with this.
Okay.
With this, like
yeah, I just want to make sure. Right,
okay.
I understood what you were saying. I'm getting thoroughly confused.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move on to the survey. Do you have time to look at it, Glenn?
Yes.
I think it's helpful. I especially like the second part of the first page where you talk about the towns having acquired it. I think they also, I need to know more about this, and maybe I can find out through town records, or you can advise Marge. My understanding is that it was purchased along with 15 acres of land on which it sat that was the original farm. And the 15 acres has been used quite extensively to good benefit for the town. But it's just the house now, and I don't know. I need to go in and talk to the, I think Debbie DeVoe said the person to talk to is the assessor, because she has yeah. She has all the records of border of, you know,
yep.
plot lines and things. Okay. So I don't know how much land goes with it, but we could put that in there somewhere.
Yeah.
I think all these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6. Don't have any questions about any of those. I think they're really good questions, helpful feedback. when you say, would you support the town investing in improving Swift House for public use? Do you mean for civic use? For, how would you define?
Well, that does need a little more explanation. I think probably public use as is the community house, similar to the community house.
Okay, like for non-municipal civic use.
Yep.
Okay.
Civic and private. I mean, well, private versus public. Yes. Yeah. I think what we were saying was just, and Alice is on this meeting if she wants to chime in too. It was just to be similar to the community house type use.
Okay. So, would you say then, would you support the town investing in improving Swift House for non-municipal civic and private use?
Yeah.
As a public.
And you could say similar to the Kent Community House.
As
a lot of people are familiar with that.
Yeah. But it's a little different because clubs and organizations don't meet at the community house. It's the scale of it is so this would be a niche that doesn't exist there. So I hesitate to use that as a reference.
Okay.
As a public resource. Okay. Number 8, did you know it was partially renovated in the past few years? Do you mean partially renovated? I mean, renovated in my mind is
repaired.
Yeah, repaired, partially. That significant repairs have taken place in the last few years, or
okay.
Would you support the town continuing to underwrite the Swift House as an historic structure, but with only necessary improvement? That confused me.
Well, and that's what I said. Good question. Let's discuss it. I was not quite.
Yeah. So what was your intention with that question? What did you mean by only necessary improvement?
Like we've been doing, replacing the roof, fixing the chimney, keeping the animals out, just the basic.
Okay, so only necessary, not improvements, but repairs and maintenance.
Okay, maintenance would be, yeah, okay. Well, but this would also, I think this is probably where the ADA would come in. That's an improvement.
Okay, repairs, maintenance, and required
access improvements.
ADA access or something.
Okay.
Would you support charging reasonable fees for public use of the Swift House to help offset the maintenance costs? Or
I rephrased that because I had something different.
I mean, there are two options. I mean, Chris Garrity's option, what he felt strongly about when he was on this committee was that it would be a real asset to the community, a public resource, to have a building that was available for civic organizations, like the Informal Club, the Lions Club, the Garden Club, for a place that they could meet that was an intimate setting and had some minimal resources, as opposed to charging.
Well, that's why this question was changed to say reasonable fees to help offset the maintenance. I mean, some people, I know Chris was focused on having it be offered for free. I want to find out if people would be willing to help pay.
Yeah.
Point of clarification, any monies that we collect go into the general fund. They don't go back into the Swift House.
Well,
It's just like community house, all the rentals go
Right.
into the general fund.
But in a sense, if people,
yeah, go ahead.
if people are putting money into the general fund for the community house benefits from that, in theory. And so the same question is here. I'm just wanted to find out if people would support trying to help the town take care of the Swift House. And we can take it out if that's not an appropriate question. That's fine.
Or make private contributions to support it. We didn't even ask about that.
Is that possible?
It is. You can take a tax deduction if you give money to a municipality for a specific community project.
But Joyce, how does that work with the bookkeeping?
Well, like Miss Emily set up a fund.
Oh, I see what you, yeah.
She expected other people. I'd love to know if that fund is still open, or, you know, even though it's empty because we used all the funds for the chimney and the roof.
I hope so.
But does the framework still exist? Because people could make contributions if they wanted to.
That's a good question.
I didn't used to think that was possible, but I was involved in a project in Vermont, and we did a lot of research, and the IRS allows contributions to municipalities as long as they are specified for some community asset. So at question 10, is there a way to structure a preference issue? Like, would you prefer to see the Swift House see reasonable fees charged for public use of the Swift House, or have the town make it available to civic organizations? I don't know.
Well, maybe we just take out the phrase to help offset the maintenance costs, because I didn't, now that Joyce has explained that, I get it. But would you support charging reasonable fees for public use of the Swift House, period? A question mark.
Or would you prefer?
What do you mean, would you prefer?
Do you think that, do you think the town should charge? I don't know. I'm just trying to think through whether there's a either or there that we could get feedback on.
Well, it's a yes or a no or a don't know. I think this is just, would you support charging reasonable fees for public use of the Swift House? Question mark. Yes, okay. You support it. You don't support it. You don't have an opinion.
Okay, but there's no opportunity to say, I think the Swift House should be a community resource supported.
Well, I think I don't know which version I sent out to you, but the last one that I had, there was going to be a place at the back at the very end of the thing for comments. So that, you know, trying to keep the questionnaire itself as simple as possible and not have people have to start writing in the middle of it. Then if they get to the end and they want to put in an opinion, they can do that.
Okay. Would you support the town converting Swift House into rental office space? I think they're because it could be more than one rental office space, depending.
Yeah, and I don't know that we ever found out whether the town can rent office space. Joyce, I remember a while back we talked about that. Maybe we need to take this. Is this an option we want to put in there?
I don't know. I think
the town doesn't really want to become a landlord.
Exactly. So why don't we just delete this one?
Okay. So that could be a question later on about,
right.
Do you think it should be sold?
Yeah.
Or, would you support selling the building for
Yeah, let's put that off. I'm gonna have to go in about 10
Okay.
minutes, so.
okay.
Yeah, I've got 2.5.
We either have to have more meetings or longer meetings so we can get through some of this stuff. Well, can you be a landlord? They don't want to be a landlord.
Right.
So do that. Okay.
Delete that.
You support the town continuing to own Swift House for future use as municipal office space as when town hall is outgrown instead of building a new addition in town hall. Yeah, okay. If the town were to sell Swift House, would you support it being turned into a two-family affordable housing dwelling? If the town were to sell Swift House, would you support selling for mixed commercial and rental use, selling to
I don't remember putting that in there. Is that what you got?
an investor? Well, that was after I had this conversation because it's really another option, because I think, you know, other buildings on Main Street and in the town center have been sold.
Well, I kind of think maybe that this whole thing about if the town were to sell it, what do you think it should be? We have no control over that. If the town's going to sell it, they're going to sell it. You can't say it's only going to be sold for one use or not. So my instinct is to take out,
and you
take out number 14, just delete it.
Yeah, but why then have 13? Because you're suggesting how it should be, who it should be sold to and for what use.
Good point.
Yeah. I mean, if it's going to be sold, it gets sold to the highest bidder.
Yep.
Because that's what a municipality has to do.
Yep. Yep. So maybe those two should just go. Glenn, what do you think about that?
Yes, if we sell, we sell. And
Right. So let's take those out.
Well, you could say, you know, would you prefer, would you suggest, or would you support the town selling the house for mixed commercial and or residential use?
Well, I think we should just ask, would you support the town, the town selling the house? Period.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Is the information you get going to be skewed? Because if I answered that I support the town, you know, making improvements, but then I read, would you support the town selling it? Can I go back and change my answer? Because let's say I want to sell it, but I've already answered the question.
Probably.
Well, or maybe they support either one. They don't care.
Right, but then how are you, but you don't know that when we get our results, and if we see, well, yeah, they support selling it, but they also support, how do we know which one they support more? I just want to make sure that the information that you get is worth something.
That's a good question. I can ask my friend Susan, who helped with this, see what she thinks about that, because she's really good at crunching numbers. So
there could be one question that says, would you support the town continuing to own? I mean, no. There would have to be multiple choices. Continuing to own for future use.
That's an idea. Have multiple choice instead of,
selling. Would you, I mean, they could check off more than one. Yeah, so it could be multiple choice. Yeah, like the first questions that asked, you know, uses.
Yeah.
Okay, so could work on that. Okay, what else do we have? Oh, Joyce, you want to bring us up to date on what's happening with, so that we're not putting things in this report that are underway?
So far, I only have scheduled, and I actually haven't scheduled it, but because I'm working with the sewer commission on the sewer connection. And depending on how much that costs, then I'll hopefully try to get somebody in there to do
Okay, you haven't been able to talk to anybody else about doing any, I mean, even like that one clapboard that's missing that drives me crazy on the back of the building where there's tar paper showing. There's nobody that can even do, oh, and the ceiling in the upstairs room where there's mold and animal residue still.
Yep. I will try to my best to find somebody to get those things done.
I mean, Ed, I understand, is working part-time for this town now. Can he not, I mean, he's willing to do it. I mean, the town could pay him and then he's an employee if they're going to pay anybody, and his heart is in it and he has time.
I'll look into it.
Okay. Yeah, because it really needs to be cleaned up. It's gross. And I'm worried about the mold if there's a lot of, more rain. And did you know anything about the kitchen? Why that's all disrupted?
Because it wasn't being used, so it was just moved to ventilated it. It had nothing to do with any floorboards or anything. It was just so that it could be unplugged and.
Okay, can it be put back so that it?
Yep.
Okay. All right, but it would be great if we could get that upstairs room taken care of in the process. Did you inquire at all, or should it go to Board of Finance about whether when a contract is signed and work is begun, it doesn't have to be completed within the fiscal year? Because most organizations work that way. Sort of like
it's still my understanding that the work needs to be completed by the end of the fiscal year in order for it to be paid, not just a signed contract. You said one of the Board of Finance members thought as long as we had a signed contract that we could do the work in an ancillary year.
Well, it's a kind of a principle of accounting. If you write a check and mail it out, it's money spent, even though the person receiving it hasn't cashed it yet.
I'm of the belief that the work needs to be completed.
Because that would give us a lot more flexibility. Is there a contractor that's available to do the sewer work if that can get done?
I was just trying to get clarification from the Sewer Commission if we had to pay the connection fee or not.
Okay, so if that's done, then there's no money to do anything else. Is that what you're telling us?
Well, right, because the sewer connection fee, is a couple $1,000. So
we had about $6,800.
I am all right, but when I call a contractor, I want to know how much money I have available. So I was trying to work that out with the Sewer Commission so that I had a clear understanding if I was going to have them come in and do one small thing, or if I could get more work done.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and nobody knows where the cesspool is, or the septic tank, or whatever is in underground. If we find out about that, it would be helpful, because one of the suggestions that either Stan or Joe made, I don't remember which, was that we might change the grade for an ADA accessible entrance instead of building a wooden ramp. And if they're going to dig up the backyard, then maybe that work could become a part of the same project.
Good idea.
Okay, anything else of consequence? Our next meeting is June, second week in June. When we meet the next time, it's June 8th. Can we make that meeting more open-ended if we have to start it earlier, so that we're not cut off without finishing an agenda? Because
Glenn, what's your schedule on Wednesdays usually?
this would be
other subcommittees should be completed by then. That's the hope after this one.
Okay. Can you let us know? Because otherwise we would move up the start time.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
could move it up by a little bit, but okay. Yeah, we'll. So if we could have an hour and a half for the meeting instead of an hour, I think that's a good idea.
I do too. Okay. Okay, guys. I will work on this resolution.
All right, I'll update the survey.
And I'll circulate it. Okay. Okie doke. Thank you very much.
All right.
I mean, do we have to do anything about approving a motion to be redrafted so that the motion is approved and the redrafting is
The original motion you were talking about in the beginning?
yeah.
You've made no motions today so far, so.
What?
You've made no official motions during this
I know.
meeting.
No, I mean, I wanted to make a motion to see if we could get the reopening achieved. But can we make a motion that will be redrafted and circulated?
No, you can't circulate, you can't do business via email, so you can't circulate it with the intent of editing it and clarifying it.
Okay, so I could redraft it. I could circulate it, then we could have a meeting
or we could make a motion tonight. I don't know how you feel about it, Glenn. We could make a motion.
I have to go right now. I cannot make a motion. I've got to go. I'm
maybe
late as it is.
Maybe before the next selectmen's meeting, we could have like a 10-minute meeting with a redrafted motion.
We could do that, I guess.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Okay. Yeah, because whatever we can do to make this happen, I think a lot of people would be grateful.
Agreed.
Okay. Okay, guys.
All right.
Thank you much.
Take care.
Okay. Ciao.